Shalom. Before I begin, I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Hashem El Shai, Bashem Akakwadash, and upon the city apostles, Elder Grand Millstone. Shalom to the Akim, teaching his word. Got the four corners and true sincerity. Back with another lesson. This man by Yahweh Bashem El Shai. Lord willing to be edifying, unto the elect of Yahweh Bashem El Shai. Alright. The true name of God is Yahweh, which means he is or he exists. The name of his son, is Yahweh Shai, which means he saves or he delivers. Alright. Yahweh, going to send Yahweh Shai, alright, to deliver the elect, from the four winds and to take down this current, wicked empire ruled by, the Edomites, Esau, Edom. Which would be your so-called Caucasians, your white people, but really started with your Bacon families, more popular, known as the Rothschilds, named the Rockefellers, all right, and the list just goes on, but those are the, main two that, people seem to recognize, all right. These families, these Edomites, have been in rulership, all right. Been in rulership, over for 3 times, and, now we're living in their last. It's like it. And now we're living in their last, hoorah. All right, this is it. All right, there won't be, a captivity again, for the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans, because we have been sent here, to America, mainly, to serve a punishment because of our, disobedience. All right, the scriptures tell us that. All right, and how we will go to Egypt again, Deuteronomy 28 and 68. It says, and the Lord Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. All right, so, we know that Egypt represents, all right, a captivity. All right, captivity for who? All right, the Israelites. All right, it was a captivity, for the Israelites. All right, notice how it says, all right, again, so meaning that, we will go to another captivity. Not saying that we will go into captivity. Not saying we'll go into Egypt again. Yeah, there may be Israelites. There are Israelites there, of course, because we are scattered. But it's to say that we'll go into another, all right, captivity. All right, when you read the scriptures, all right, it's not just, not just a plain thing. It's not just, reading off the book and like, all right, that's it. No. All right, this is a book of parables and mysteries and prophecies that need to be, broken down. That's why you had, prophets. That's why you had teachers. That's why you had, like the eunuch Slakia in Acts. All right, that was told, that was said, how can he learn except, you have a teacher? So these things must be taught. Right, because we came into, America, all right, through the transatlantic slave trade, where, Jake was getting, shipped off on ships, all right, taken from Africa, throughout the different parts of the earth, okay, to serve, like I said, and we were sold unto our enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, all right, so we were made unto slaves. And you can see that, from 1619, from 1969, we were, going through hardcore slavery. All right. We're going through hardcore slavery. And yeah, we're still in slavery now. Just the conditions has changed. All right. But it said that we will be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. All right. So meaning no man was going to save us, redeem us. That's why marching didn't work. That's why, Black Panthers didn't work. All right, that's why none of that shit worked. Black Lives Matter, that definitely didn't work. That's why these different things are even Jake trying to educate himself and putting himself in high position, voting. None of that shit is going to work. We are to, wait upon Yahweh Shai, because he's going to be the one to deliver us, out of our captivity, to free us. Okay? But it starts, now. By this wisdom and knowledge. Okay? We are spiritually saved, but physically we're still in captivity. Like you're saying, you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free, shall make you free. Yeah, we've been freed mentally, but we still gotta pay taxes and go to work and do all these things. All right, till Yahweh Shai returns. This is Baruch 4:6. It says, "You were sold to the nations, not for your destruction, but because you moved the Most High to wrath, you were delivered unto the enemy. Obedience, because of our wickedness, we've been given unto the enemy." Because Jake liked to ask. I even remember this, in school, and it was, I had this teacher at middle school. Her name was Mrs. Toussaint. She said she used to, she also used to yap and shit. She also used to, go into conspiracy theories and things like that. All right, which was crazy for a school teacher. But she used to talk about it. She'll go through her regular lesson, her regular school shit, and then she'll end up talking about conspiracies and things like that to the whole class. All right, and she said something. She said, yeah, because I believe somebody asked her, why you don't read the Bible. She said, yeah, she did all that, but she couldn't find a reason as to why the Lord would turn a blind eye, because Jake like say the Lord turned a blind eye to slavery. All right, the Lord put us in slavery. He did that because there was a reason, though. So in a sense, the Lord really, he didn't really turn a blind eye. He put us in that situation because of our wickedness. All right, that was his judgment, toward us. All right, it says, "For you have provoked him that made you by sacrificing unto devils and not to the Most High." Because people have this assumption of the Lord, that the Lord is all loving, and how could the Lord do something that terrible, all right, that harsh, right? You don't know the God of the Bible. All right, they will never think that the Lord would do that, but it's the same God that flooded the earth, and it's the same God that's going to have 200 million warheads touch down here in America, and even before the missiles, Jacob's trouble and pestilences, and even things that you're seeing now, storms. All right, that's gonna be unleashed on the earth. So the Lord doesn't do things without a reason. All right, but again, we've been brought here for captivity, but our captivity is almost up. All right, because when you go down and skip through the verse, well, you skip down to 21. Just be of good cheer with my children, because again, this is only for a punishment. It says, "Cry unto the Lord, and he will deliver you from the power and hand of the enemies. For my hope is in the everlasting, that he will save you, and joy is come unto me from the Holy One, because of the mercy which shall soon come unto you from the everlasting, our Savior." So again, temporary punishments. That's why we are to be of a good cheer and to rejoice. All right, because we have found his wisdom and knowledge. Now we know that, we have, a hope, expectation. All right, not just, regular Jake, how they be in the world. They just go to church and they just, pray to JC for them to, make it in Babylon. We're not praying for that. We praying to the Lord. It's short in these days, and we seeing it in real time, with news with war and news with, upwards of the people and signs of the mark of the beast. All these things are prophecy of what's to come. All right, because we know that, the time is almost up for this place, and Lord is gonna have, mercy, on his people. Starting with the, really with the elect, have mercy on us. All right, it says, "For I sent you out with mourning and weeping, but the Most High should give you to me again with joy and gladness of heart, like as now the neighbors of Sion have seen your captivity, so shall they see shortly your salvation from our God, which shall come upon you with great glory and brightness of the everlasting. All right, so even though these nations, they saw us in captivity, further the captivity, further the punishment, right? They're going to see us get delivered as well. All right, it says, my children, suffer patiently the wrath that has come upon you from the Most High. For thine enemy had persecuted thee, but surely thou shalt see his destruction and shalt tread upon his neck. So even though these nations had us under captivity, and then, as I said before, further the affliction, starting with Esau, Edom, or the roles are about to reverse, and this is a righteous thing. All right, according to the Bible. All right, because when you read Revelation 13 and 10, it says, start at 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leave in captivity, he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here's the patience and the faith of the saints. So, like how them crackers be saying, or how Jake be saying, our people be saying, everything that goes around, must come around. Right? So the same way how Esau led us into captivity, the same way for him. He's going to go into captivity, as well. He's going to serve a punishment for the things that he's done. All right, because the Lord is just. Okay. Is 2 Thessalonians 1:6, seeing it is a righteous thing with the Most High to recompense tribulation to them that trouble you. So this is a righteous thing to, what the Lord is going to do, to these heathens. Because who troubled us the most? Esau, Edom, and these other nations. Because they always in, cahoots, one with another, right? The proof was in the pudding. For example, you have, the Russian icons, right? Even though they're Edomites as well, you have the Russian icons, meaning that they had these images, these Russians, right? They had these images, so-called Russians. They had these images before, but they never, released them. And even other nations, they have photos and depicting who are the true chosen people, but they won't release it or tell the public. They are now because they beefing with each other, but still. All right, the knowledge is known. All right, because they would rather, they would rather, themselves be on top of another rather than us be on top of them. All right. With that alone, this lesson was edifying. I want to give our praises to Yahweh Bashim Al Shah Bashim Mekakadash. The bonus to the apostles and others great millstone and Shalom. Said I can teach this word about the four corners, and sincerity, we must out of